My name is Hannah. I am 29 years old. My life was quiet, simple, and for the most part, predictable. I worked in a small office in the city, doing basic tasks with files and papers. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it paid the bills, and I was okay with that. My life was calm, but sometimes I wondered if it could be more than just this routine. I didn't have many friends. I was a bit shy, often keeping to myself. I didn't mind it much. Being alone felt safe. I had my small apartment, a few close friends, and an easygoing life. But then, everything changed when I met Ben. It was at a dinner party hosted by a friend, Sarah. I didn't want to go at first, but Sarah convinced me. I'm glad I did. That night, I met Ben. He was kind and had a way of making everyone feel comfortable. He smiled often and spoke gently, and I felt at ease around him right away. I, being the shy person I was, didn't expect him to talk to me, but he did. We sat next to each other, and before I knew it, we were laughing about the cold soup Sarah had made. I remember feeling something I hadn't in a long time. Safe, not just physically, but emotionally. There was something in the way Ben listened, the way he made me feel like I mattered. After that night, we started talking more, and within a few weeks, we began dating. Ben's life was different from mine. He came from a big family, parents and a younger sister. They lived in a large house just outside the city. I was nervous when he invited me to meet them. I had never been part of a big family, and I wasn't sure if I would fit in. Still, I decided to go, hoping everything would go well. I brought flowers for Ben's mother and a cake from the shop. I wanted to make a good impression. When we arrived at their house, Ben's mother smiled, but didn't say much. She seemed polite, but distant. His father just shook my hand and walked away. His sister barely acknowledged me, only glancing at me before turning her attention back to her phone. I tried not to let it bother me, but I couldn't help feeling a little out of place. It was my first time meeting his family, so I told myself that maybe they were just quiet. I didn't want to think that something was wrong, but it was hard not to notice how awkward everything felt. Despite that, I told myself I had to try. Ben and I had only been dating for a few months, and I hoped they just needed time to warm up to me. We continued to date for about a year, and then Ben surprised me by asking me to marry him. I was overjoyed. I said yes without hesitation, and he hugged me tightly. In that moment, I felt like everything was finally falling into place. I thought his family would be just as happy as we were, but when I told them, their reactions were far from what I expected. Ben's mother, who had always been polite, said, "So soon?" His sister, barely looking up from her phone, muttered, "I don't even know how you two live." I tried to ignore the sting of their words, but it was hard. I wanted them to be happy for us. I wanted to feel accepted by his family, but instead, I felt like an outsider. Our wedding was small. My parents were there, but Ben's family didn't seem to share the same joy. His mother wore black, and his sister left early, saying she had other things to do. After the ceremony, Ben reassured me, "Don't worry, they just need time to adjust." So we moved into his family's house. As it was his idea, Ben said it would help us save money. I didn't mind at first. I was happy to be close to him, and I thought living together would help us grow as a couple. But soon, I began to realize things weren't as simple as I had hoped. At first, I tried to make myself useful. I woke up early every morning to prepare tea for everyone, clean the kitchen, wash the dishes, and even helped his mother with laundry. I was eager to fit in, to make a place for myself in this house. But nothing ever seemed enough. His mother never thanked me for my efforts. She simply gave me orders and looked at me as though I was supposed to know my place. "Don't break anything," she'd say when I was in the kitchen. Or, use your hands, not the machine, when I was washing her old clothes by hand. My hands began to hurt from scrubbing. But I kept quiet, doing everything she asked. Ben would come home from work and tell me, "That's nice, you're good at helping." But that was the end of the praise. I wanted him to acknowledge how hard I was working, but he didn't seem to notice. He was busy, and I was becoming more and more frustrated. I felt like a servant, not a wife. I had no space of my own. His family was always there, watching, judging, and asking more of me. One day his sister asked me, "Can you iron my dress? Can you bring me some tea? You're not busy, right?" She was 22 and didn't work. She spent her days in her room, watching shows, taking photos, and barely acknowledging my presence. It hurt to be treated like I was invisible. I tried to talk to Ben about how I was feeling. I said, "I feel like a maid, not your wife." He told me, "They just need time to trust you. Please be patient." But I didn't know how much longer I could wait. I was doing everything for this family, and still, no one seemed to care. One evening, I made soup for dinner. It was fresh and warm, and I put my heart into it. But when Ben's mother tasted it, she scowled. "Too salty. You don't know how to cook for a family," she said, before throwing it away. I was crushed. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. Instead, I forced a smile and cleaned up the mess. But the hurt stayed with me. I started to give up on myself. I stopped going out with friends. I felt like I had no energy left for anything but cooking, cleaning, and trying to please Ben's family. But Ben didn't notice. Maybe he did, but he never asked if I was okay. His mother began to make more demands. "Can you wash this? Can you iron this? Can you do that?" And when I said I was tired, she would just say, "Some women are lazy. They only want the husband, not the family." It was becoming unbearable. I was losing myself in this house, and the quiet moments I once enjoyed were nowhere to be found. The days went by, I began to feel more and more invisible. My life felt like a never-ending cycle of cooking, cleaning, and serving. Ben would come home from work and barely look up from his phone. He didn't seem to notice how exhausted I was. And when I tried to talk to him about how I felt, he always brushed it off, telling me that his family just needed time to trust me. One evening, I finally reached my breaking point. I couldn't take it anymore. The constant work, the lack of appreciation, the cold stares from Ben's family. It was all too much. I sat down with Ben and said, "I don't want to live like this anymore." He looked at me, his face blank, and replied, "Don't start a fight. My mother is old. She needs help." I looked at him, my heart heavy. "I'm not your mother's worker, Ben," I said quietly, but he just stared at me, his expression hardening. "If you don't want to help, then don't," he said. But if I didn't help, his mother would make loud comments, criticizing me, making me feel even smaller. I felt trapped. I had no voice in that house. Every time I tried to stand up for myself, I was met with coldness and silence. Ben didn't seem to understand. I was exhausted, physically and emotionally, and yet he didn't seem to care. He never noticed how much I was sacrificing for this family. The final straw came one morning when I made tea and toast for everyone, just like I always did. Ben's mother walked in, looked at the tea, and said, "No sugar again." I felt a pang of frustration. "I thought you don't like sugar," I said. But she just looked at me and said, "You don't think that's your problem." I felt so small in that moment, so insignificant. I was doing everything for these people, and yet it was never enough. I watched as Ben walked into the room, kissed his mother on the cheek, and then turned to me, asking, "Did you eat?" I shook my head. "I was waiting," I said, my voice quiet. He sat down to eat, completely ignoring me. He didn't ask if I was okay, if I needed anything. It was as if I wasn't even there. That day, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I had had enough. I was tired of being invisible, tired of being treated like I didn't matter. I didn't want to stay in that house any longer. I wanted to find a place for myself, to feel like I had a voice, a space where I wasn't just a servant. That night, I talked to Ben again. "Your family doesn't like me," I told him. He shook his head, denying it, but deep down, I knew the truth. They didn't respect me. They never did. And Ben, my husband, didn't seem to care. His mother gave me more work to do the next day. She asked me to clean all the windows in the house, and there were a lot of them. I spent hours scrubbing, my arms and back aching. When I finished, she looked at the glass and said, "You missed one." I stared at the window. It was clean. I couldn't understand. "It looks clean to me," I said, exhausted. She just shook her head. "Well, not to me," she said, and walked away. I sat down, feeling tears well up in my eyes. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. I had no time for tears. Instead, I swallowed the lump in my throat and finished the rest of my chores. Ben came home that night, and I told him again, "I don't want to stay here anymore." He looked at me, confused. "Where will we go? We can't pay rent now," he said, as if I was asking for something impossible. "I don't care. We can try," I said, my voice shaking with frustration. "We can find a small place. Anything, but not this." But Ben just shook his head. "I like it here. I don't want to move," he said. I looked at him, my heart breaking. I wanted him to understand, to see how unhappy I was. But he didn't. He didn't seem to care about my feelings. He only cared about staying in his family's house, where he didn't have to change anything. That night, I packed a small bag and walked out of the house. Ben followed me, asking, "What are you doing?" "I need a break," I said. "I'm going to stay with Chloe for a few days." He didn't say anything. He just watched me walk out. My hands were shaking as I left the house, but I knew it was the right decision. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was doing something for myself. I stayed with Chloe for a few days, trying to clear my head. Her house was a welcome change from the chaos I had left behind. It was small and cozy, and Chloe always made me feel at ease. There were no judgments, no demands, no expectations. I could just be myself. During those few days, I spent hours thinking about my life, about Ben, and about what I wanted. Chloe, being the good friend that she was, listened patiently as I poured out my heart. She didn't judge me. She didn't offer unsolicited advice. She just listened. "Maybe you need to talk to Ben. Really talk to him," she said one evening as we sat on her couch, sipping tea. "I've tried," I replied, my voice thick with frustration. "But it's like he's not even hearing me. He's so focused on his family, and I'm just invisible." I wiped a tear from my cheek, not even realizing it had fallen. Chloe put a hand on mine. "You can't keep living for everyone else, Hannah. You deserve to be happy too." I nodded, but inside, I felt lost. I didn't know how to fix things with Ben. How could I make him see me as more than just the woman who cleans his house and takes care of his mother? How could I make him understand that I needed more than just a place to stay? After 3 days at Chloe's, I returned to Ben's house. I had no idea what I was going to say to him, but I knew I couldn't keep avoiding the conversation. I had to face him. When I walked through the door, Ben was sitting in the living room, looking at his phone. He looked up when I entered, but there was no real recognition in his eyes. He didn't even get up. "Hi," I said quietly, standing by the door. "Hey," he said, distracted. "How was Chloe's?" "It was fine," I replied. my voice almost cold. Ben looked at me for a moment, then glanced back at his phone. I could feel the distance between us growing. I didn't want to be ignored. I didn't want to be invisible anymore. "I need to talk to you, Ben," I said firmly, walking toward him. "About everything." He looked up from his phone, a flicker of something in his eyes, but he didn't say anything. He just nodded and set his phone down on the table. "I can't keep living like this," I started, my voice trembling. "I can't keep pretending everything is okay when it's not." Ben looked at me for a long moment, then sighed. "What are you talking about? You wanted this. You wanted to be with me, to be a part of my family." "I didn't want this." "Ben," I said, my voice rising, "I didn't want to feel like a stranger in my own home. I didn't want to feel like I'm not even a person to you anymore. I'm not just your wife. I'm someone who needs love and respect too." Ben looked taken aback. I didn't know you felt like that. You never asked," I said quietly. "You're always too busy with your family, and I'm just here. I'm just doing everything for them. But you're not even noticing. I'm not a maid, Ben. I'm your wife." Ben's face softened, but he still seemed confused. "But my mom needs help. You knew that when we got married. I didn't know it would mean losing myself," I said, my voice breaking. "I didn't know it would mean that I would disappear." He was quiet for a long time, his eyes flicking to the floor. I could see that he was processing what I had said. But was it too late? Had I already lost him? "I don't know what to say," he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "And I didn't realize how much you were struggling. But I don't want you to leave, Hannah. I don't want to lose you." My heart sank as I looked at him. "Then you need to change, Ben. You need to start seeing me. You need to start seeing us, not just your family." He stood up, walking toward me slowly. "I'm sorry, Hannah. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I've been so focused on my family and work that I forgot about you. I never wanted you to feel like this." I nodded, wiping my tears away. "I'm not sure what we can do now, Ben. I'm not sure if we can fix this." "I'll try, Hannah. I will," he said, reaching out for my hand. "I don't want to lose you." I stood there, unsure of what to feel. Part of me wanted to believe him, to trust that things would change. But another part of me wondered if it was too late. Could we really fix this? Could we truly find our way back to each other? The next few days were a blur. Ben and I tried to talk more, but it felt forced. He started helping around the house more, but I could sense the tension between us. It wasn't enough to fix everything, and deep down, I knew that something had shifted between us. We were no longer the couple we had been when we first got married. There was a distance, a space between us that couldn't be easily filled. One evening, as I sat in the living room, I found myself reflecting on everything. Ben had tried, but I wasn't sure if that was enough. I didn't know if I could keep living in a relationship where I constantly felt unseen. I had spent so much time trying to make him see me, trying to make things work, but I couldn't do it alone. Maybe it was time to let go. The days following that conversation felt like a blur. Ben and I tried to go back to a routine, as though things could simply be fixed with a few apologies and promises. But deep down, I knew that we had reached a point where our relationship couldn't just be patched up with words. It wasn't just the small things anymore, the lack of affection, the growing distance, the overwhelming weight of his mother's needs that constantly overshadowed mine. It was everything. The way we had drifted apart, the way he didn't seem to notice how much I was hurting, and how, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't seem to reach him anymore. I couldn't help but wonder, had we both been living in some sort of fantasy, believing that things could go back to the way they once were? One night, after Ben had returned from another long day of work and helping his mother, I found myself sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. My heart felt heavy, and my mind was racing. I had to make a decision. When Ben walked in, he paused for a moment, looking at me as though he didn't know what to say. We hadn't spoken much that day. His mother had called again with another request, and it felt like he had been tethered to her, unable to focus on us. My frustration had been building for weeks, but now, in the quiet of the room, it all seemed too much to bear. I can't keep doing this, Ben, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked at me, his face full of concern. What do you mean? I can't keep living like this, I said again, standing up from the bed, my legs shaky. I don't know what happened to us, but I don't recognize this relationship anymore. You don't see me. You don't see what I'm going through. And I can't keep waiting for you to notice. Ben looked like he had been struck. His eyes widened, and for a moment, he looked as though he was going to say something, but the words didn't come. I've tried, Hannah, he said finally, his voice laced with desperation. I'm trying to be there for you, but I don't know what you want from me anymore. I want you to see me, Ben, to really see me, I replied, my throat tightening. I want to feel like I matter. I want to feel like I'm not just a part of your routine. I don't want to keep losing myself for the sake of everyone else. Ben reached out to touch my arm, but I pulled away. It wasn't that I didn't love him anymore, but I couldn't keep living in a relationship where I was constantly ignored. The loneliness in our marriage had eaten away at me for so long that I didn't know how much more I could take. I don't want to lose you, he said, his voice cracking. I love you, Hannah. Please don't leave. I looked at him then, really looked at him, and I saw the pain in his eyes. But I also saw something else, something I hadn't seen in a long time, regret, and maybe, just maybe, a realization that I wasn't just a wife and caretaker. I was a person with needs, with desires, with dreams of my own. But was that enough? Could I keep holding on to someone who was only half present, who only seemed to show up when it was convenient? The years of giving and sacrificing had left me drained, and I had nothing more to give. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Ben, I whispered. I don't know if I can keep pretending that everything is okay when it's not. Ben's face crumpled, and for the first time in months, he seemed to realize the weight of my words, the weight of my pain. He stepped back, looking lost. I don't want to lose you, he said again, his voice pleading. But I don't know how to keep going like this, I replied, shaking my head. I can't keep hoping that things will change, that you'll suddenly see me. I can't wait for something to happen when I don't even know what that something is. There was a long silence between us, the room heavy with unspoken words. I felt as though we were standing on the edge of something, but I didn't know if we were going to fall together or apart. I loved him. I always would. But love couldn't carry us anymore. I'm sorry, Ben, I said softly, tears spilling down my cheeks. I don't know if this is enough anymore. Ben's eyes softened, and for a moment, he looked like the man I had married, the man I had fallen in love with. But that man was gone, replaced by someone who didn't understand the depths of my pain, someone who couldn't give me what I needed. I'll change, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I swear I'll try harder. I'll do whatever it takes. I shook my head, feeling the weight of the decision press down on me. It's not just about trying harder, Ben. It's about being present, about seeing me. Not just what I do, but who I am. I can't keep living like this. Not anymore. For the first time, Ben didn't argue. He just stood there, staring at me as if he was waiting for me to change my mind. But I couldn't. I had to do what was right for me, even if it meant breaking my own heart. I think we need time apart, I said, my voice steady but full of sadness. Ben looked at me for a long moment, and I saw the struggle in his eyes. "Time apart," he repeated, as if the idea was foreign to him. "I need space to figure things out, Ben. I need to find myself again," I said. "I can't keep losing myself for the sake of this marriage. I have to find out who I am outside of being your wife." He nodded slowly, though his face was pale, his eyes clouded with fear and confusion. "I don't want to lose you, Hannah. I don't want to lose you either," I whispered. "But I don't know how much more of this I can take." I turned away from him then, stepping toward the door. I could hear him calling my name behind me, but I couldn't turn back. Not this time. Not when I had already lost so much of myself. The days that followed were quieter, filled with the weight of uncertainty. I stayed in the guest room for a while, as Ben retreated into his world of obligations and duties, avoiding the painful conversations we both knew we needed to have. It felt like we were just two strangers, passing through the same house, no longer sharing the same space in the way we used to. I spent a lot of time thinking about what went wrong, about the person I had become, and about the love that once seemed so effortless between Ben and me. But now I was a shadow of who I had been. I couldn't remember the last time I had felt truly seen by him, truly understood. And though I still loved him, the love we shared had become something unrecognizable, something that couldn't be saved by simple apologies or promises. I went to the kitchen one evening, needing something to distract myself from my spiraling thoughts. Ben was sitting at the table, looking down at his phone. He hadn't looked at me in days, and I knew that. I had been avoiding him too. Neither of us had the words to bridge the gap that had formed between us. "Hannah," he said finally, his voice low and tentative. "Can we talk?" I looked at him, heart heavy with 1,000 unspoken words. "About what?" He sighed, setting his phone aside. "About everything. About us. I know I've messed up. I know I haven't been there for you in the way you needed. But I don't know how to fix it, Hannah. I don't know how to fix us." His eyes were searching mine, desperate for some kind of answer, some indication that maybe, just maybe, there was still hope. But I couldn't give him that. I had tried, time and time again, to hold on, to believe that things could go back to the way they once were. But the truth was, I had already given so much of myself, too much, and I couldn't keep losing who I was for the sake of a relationship that no longer made me feel whole. "Ben," I began, my voice trembling. "I've been trying to figure this out for a while now, and I keep coming to the same conclusion." I paused, searching for the right words. "I can't keep pretending anymore. I don't feel like I belong here. I don't feel like your wife. I feel like a stranger." He looked at me as if I had slapped him, and for a moment I regretted the words I had said. But deep down, I knew they were the truth that had been buried under layers of unspoken pain for too long. "I don't want to be a stranger in my own marriage, Ben," I continued softly. "I've been holding on to something that's already slipping away, and I can't keep doing that to myself." Ben's face crumpled in anguish, but I didn't let myself look away. "I had to be strong, for both of us. I don't want to lose you," he whispered, the words full of sorrow. "I never wanted this. I love you, Hannah. Please, don't leave." Tears welled in my eyes, and I tried to blink them away. I could see how much he was hurting, but the truth was, I couldn't keep carrying this weight on my own. Love was never meant to be this hard. "I know you love me, Ben," I said, my voice cracking. "But love isn't enough anymore. It can't be enough when we're both so far apart. I've given so much of myself, and now I don't even recognize who I am anymore. I need to find me again. I can change," he said, reaching out to grab my hand, his touch desperate. Please, I can try harder. I'll do whatever it takes. Just don't leave me. I shook my head slowly, pulling my hand away from his grasp. I don't know if I can believe you anymore. You say you'll change, but how many times have you said that before? And how many times have I waited for something that never came? Ben stood up, pacing the room, his face red with frustration. I can't lose you, Hannah. I won't let you go. Please, just give me a chance to make this right. But I had already given him countless chances, and with each one, I felt a little more invisible, a little more alone. I loved him, I truly did, but I had come to realize that love couldn't fix everything, and it certainly couldn't fix what had already broken between us. Sometimes, I said, wiping away the tears that had started to fall again, you have to let go, not because you don't love someone, but because you realize that love isn't enough to make things right anymore. Ben fell silent, his face pale, his eyes filled with disbelief. I could see the pain in his expression, but I knew this was the only way forward for both of us. We couldn't keep pretending. We couldn't keep holding on to something that was no longer there. I'm sorry, Ben, I said quietly, but I think it's time for us to let go. I need to find myself, again, and I can't do that while I'm drowning in this. Ben didn't respond. He just stood there, staring at me, as if waiting for me to take it all back. But I couldn't. I had made my decision. It was time to move on. I'll always love you, Ben, I whispered, my voice breaking as I spoke. But I can't keep living like this. I need to be free. I need to find myself again. And with that, I turned and walked out of the room, leaving behind everything I had once known, the life we had shared, the love we had built, and the person I had once been.